Right? YouTube. Hello, YouTube. All right. Hey, YouTubers. Let me get TikTok going. TikTok actually is ready to go live already. So there we go. TikTok go live. Excellent. Excellent. Yeah, lots of we're doing Iran today. Lots of news. Lots of news. There we go. All right. Welcome, everybody. How are we doing this evening? I'm John Aravosis, as you all know. We'll wait a second for people to arrive. Today, we're going to talk about Iran and Israel because that is the story. Exactly. I decided to do fun thumbnails on TikTok and YouTube. Kind of fun, though, because it's ChatGPT. I said, okay, do something with this title about the war. Do whatever you want. And it did it. I was like, damn. I mean, in the old days when we would want to put like clips for like you needed images for stories and stuff, you never had anything like that. I mean, it was amazing. Having ChatGPT be able to just do covers for me is just absolutely brilliant. Anyway, hey, T-Queen. So welcome, guys. We are going to talk about Israel and Iran. Lots of news today. No, Mike, you are correct. It is not just you. Hang on. TikTok. TikTok. There we go. Now you got the good mic on TikTok. We are not at the precipice of World War III, but we are at the precipice of well, actually, Iran and Israel are at war. That's true at this point. What happens next, we shall see, but they are at war. A quick programming note, as we say, tomorrow morning, I've got my coffee talk show with you guys. Thank you, Aileen. Thank you, Lynn. Thank you, Terry. Thank you, Richard. So tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern, I will be doing the hangout for just the paid monthly subscribers. Obviously, we'll be talking about this. I mean, we'll talk about whatever you want, but this is a pretty obvious topic we'll be talking about. But with no further ado, let's get into the topics today. So today we're going to talk about Iran and Israel at war. That is the topic of the day. We're not talking about Trump other than how it relates to this. I'm not talking about Ukraine. Let's stick with Iran and Israel. I want to try to give you basically an overview of what we know at this point. Thank you, Jorge. Thank you, Ava. Keep the gifts coming, guys. Appreciate it. Somebody want to let Doug know that other people earlier on Discord were having problems with the connection and they found they needed to leave and come back. Doug, you were able to come back. Yeah. So people on Discord, if anybody else says they're having a problem with the connection, suggest they leave and come back because that was the problem earlier today. Thank you, Larissa. Thank you, Mandy, for subscribing. Thank you, Patty. So let's go through what happened here. Last night, Israel attacked Iran to take out Iran's nuclear weapons program, to also take out Iran's military leadership. Not their civilian leadership yet. Let's see what happens tonight. Tonight that may change, but not their civilian leadership yet. Prime Minister Netanyahu of Israel did do a speech to the nation today in which he spoke to the Iranian people and did call for them to overthrow their government, which was interesting because a lot of the discussion yesterday was, is Israel, kind of going to do this to try to destabilize the Iranian regime, or is it just to go after their nukes? It looks like it's a mixture of both. Israel attacks last night. Iran then counterattacks today. Israel promised more attacks in the next few days. Let me go through some of what we know here. All right. The attack kicked off last night. It was called Operation Rising Lion. It began with a series of Israeli airstrikes, but at the same time, Mossad agents, Mossad is the Israeli CIA, very famous, very good at what they do, had pre-positioned themselves inside Iran, which is absolutely like wild stuff here. And actually, as I describe this, you're going to think of what the Ukrainians did, very similar to what the Ukrainians did in some ways. So Mossad agents are inside, smuggling weapons, planting explosive drones, staging ambushes, large airstrikes as well from Israel. 200 Israeli aircraft, including F-35s, struck around 100 targets using an estimated 330 bombs. Main targets included nuclear facilities, missile factories, radar and surface-to-air missile batteries. Surface-to-air missiles, of course, because that's the defense the Iranians would be using to shoot down the missiles or to shoot down the Israeli planes. So they've got to take out the Iranian defenses, right? Islamic Republican Guard or Iranian Republican Guard headquarters. This is the specialized military forces, command centers, personal residences of senior leaders. Key personnel taken out. The top generals are gone. The two top generals, Callum and I were looking at this earlier today when I went live, kind of comparing it to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs In other words, America's top general is who they took out in Iran, but they also took out another guy who heads up the Islamic or the Iranian Republican Guard or Revolutionary Guard, which is kind of equal in caliber. Thank you, Cindy. Basically, these guys are the top two Iranian military leaders. Israel took them out. They took out 6, I believe is the latest count, 6 nuclear scientists, the top nuclear scientists. A little bit more here. Civilian impact, at least 78 to 90 civilians dead, 320 injured, according to the Iranians. Israel claims the air defenses were neutralized. Iran's response. So Iran responded initially with 100+ drones. Israel was able to take out most of the drones. Keep in mind, Iran has been supplying drones to Russia, right? So same drones that the Russians have been using. Those Shahed drones, those are the Iranian drones. Followed by a barrage of 150+ ballistic missiles from Iran. Many of them were shot down, not all of them. We saw a video earlier today of missiles hitting, for example, the Israeli city of Tel Aviv. I will say this, the Israelis said that the Iranians were targeting civilian areas. I don't know yet whether that's true. I say this because the only example I heard of, for example, was the Iranians did hit an apartment building, but it appeared they were trying to hit an Israeli military headquarters that was not like a block away. I mean, the Iranian missiles did not do well, but it was not clear in that case, for example, that the Iranians were going after civilian targets. I don't know beyond that. What will be interesting about this, thank you, Laddie, thank you, Succeed, Miko, Laddie again, Ash, everybody, Just. What is interesting about this is Israel had said that if Iran went after civilian targets, Israel was going to hit them much harder tonight. What remains to be seen is, did Iran target Israeli civilian targets? Because if they did, Israel's going to hit them even harder. Israel might go after civilian leadership in Iran. We don't know. We don't know. Anyway, let's see a little bit more here. Let me see. Israel, from an Israeli perspective, obviously this was incredibly successful. They decapitated the Iranian military. They took out a number of nuclear reactors. They took out a number of nuclear facilities. There's more they have to go after. Some of them are buried deep. It is unclear if Israel has the weapons to go after the facilities that are buried deep in the mountain. The Americans do, but the Americans are not a party to the war yet. Interestingly, last night, Marco Rubio, who is our Secretary of State, made clear that America wasn't involved, right? That we didn't have a role in this. He basically distanced America from the attack, and he did not endorse the attack at all, which was interesting. I noted this yesterday. This morning, Donald Trump did the opposite. Donald Trump said, we're with Israel all the way. He seemed to be cheering on the attack, which was interesting. Not very good. I say this because it was a taco move by Trump. Last night, clearly Rubio put out the statement last night because Trump agreed. And Trump said, yeah, let's distance ourselves. This morning, Trump changed his mind. That waffling is not good. Another thing Trump did, which was rather bizarre. Last night, when all the bombs were dropping, which was probably 9 o'clock or so American time, Eastern time, US, in Washington, we know that Israel is bombing Iran. We know that Iran is going to respond. We know that this is war in the Middle East. Donald Trump announces he's going to have a meeting of the National Security Council in the Situation Room of the White House today to discuss the situation, the dangerous situation. And that's important. Whenever there is a crisis, an international crisis, the president calls the National Security Council together, all the principals, the heads of the agencies, the CIA, DOD, everybody together in the crisis room, right? Trump, get this. This is last night at 9 o'clock. Israel and Iran go to war. Potential for American troops being hurt in the Middle East, our bases there. Potential for this becoming a regional war and even bigger. Donald Trump says this is so important, we are going to have an emergency meeting in the city. This is, keep in mind, 9 o'clock last night. Donald Trump says we're going to have an emergency meeting in the Situation Room tomorrow at 11 a.m. They held the emergency meeting this morning at 11 a.m. They scheduled it last night at 9 p.m. They waited over 12 hours to have the emergency meeting. That meeting should have been held immediately. Iran was at war. Israel was at war. Israel is our is one of our top, whether you like it or not, Israel is one of our top allies. This has the potential for American troops to be in danger in the Middle East. A regional war that could bring in Russia, it could bring in us. And Donald Trump thought it was so important, he had to have a meeting in the Situation Room of the White House, the crisis room, 14 hours later. Not only, and think about this too, he didn't schedule the meeting for 7 a.m., for 8 a.m., right? First thing in the morning. He scheduled it for 11 a.m. So like people could get up, have brunch. I mean, it's incredibly inappropriate what he did. I mean, I'm telling you this, as somebody who's lived and worked in Washington for 40 years and who studied this stuff for a living, you have these meetings immediately when there is a crisis. You don't schedule them for the next morning. And if you're going to schedule them for the next morning when there's a chance of all-out war, you don't schedule the meeting for 11 a.m., a nice lazy time that you can get up, like I said, have brunch. I mean, a number of journalists noticed it too. I mean, I noticed it. And then this editor of The Economist said the same thing. He goes, there's no way it's 11 a.m. I said, oh yeah, it's 11 a.m. Just want to bring that up because this is, again, the problem if you have someone in power who is not good at their job in the presidency. It can be very dangerous. All right, a little bit more here. Looking here, oil prices have surged, not surprisingly. Stock market went down, not surprisingly. Heightened risk of a regional war. We know that. Interesting issue with regards to Iranian proxies, surrogates, Iranian allies. You've got the Houthis, right? Those people in Yemen, the terrorist group that runs Yemen that's been attacking international shipping. You've got Hezbollah, the terrorist group in Lebanon that controls part of Lebanon. You've got Hamas, the terrorist group that controls Gaza. All of them are Iranian allies. They could ramp things up and go after Israel even harder. Hezbollah has got something on the order of, is it 150,000 armaments, I think? I've got this on a further page further down. I've got it on one of my further, hold on a second here. I'm going to look here. Where's my Hezbollah? 1 second here. I had this from earlier. 150,000 rockets. Hezbollah has 150,000 rockets in southern Lebanon, right on the Israeli border. That would be bad for Israel to have another front there. The Houthis, I think it's like 1/3 of global commerce or something goes via the Houthis. The Houthis are on the water there, right south of Iran, right east of Saudi Arabia. The Houthis have already been targeting international shipping. They could go after it again. Then you got the Iranians. What could the Iranians do? The Iranians could shut down the Straits of Hormuz, which a ton of international oil goes through if the Iranians wanted to be jerks about it. Now, Strait of Hormuz, I pulled some notes on this. 21 miles wide, 20% of global oil trade goes through it. Major oil exporters using the Strait of Hormuz that would lose access: Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Iraq, Kuwait, and Iran itself, we should note. So lots of potential danger for things to get out of control there. Let me see what else I got here. Iran could certainly resort to terrorist attacks. Iran is quite possibly the biggest state sponsor of terrorism in the world. They have been for decades. Certainly 50 years or the 45 years that the Ayatollahs have been in charge. They could certainly resort to terrorism in the Middle East. They could resort to terrorism in Europe. They could resort to terrorism in America and in Israel, of course, as well. Cyber attacks. Iran could pull out of the nuclear non-proliferation treaty, right? China and India, or China and Russia, see to what degree China and Russia might try to provide Iran more aid. Russia, kind of difficult because Russia's already struggling in Ukraine. I don't know how much room Russia has to give aid to Iran. China could, whether they would is another question. You know what? That was a quick summary. I'm going to do that for my summary for right now, and let's kind of get into it more in depth here. So Iran's nukes. Iran has had a nuclear weapons program for a while. They have been developing it slowly, but they are at the same time holding back, meaning for a long time now, Iran has been about a week or 2 weeks away from building a nuclear weapon, meaning not that they're building it in 2 weeks, but meaning if they choose to build a nuclear weapon, it would take them about 2 weeks to do it at this point because they're that close. But they have not chosen to build the nuclear weapon. They have chosen to keep getting closer and closer and closer to being ready to build it. Israel decided that they were too close. Now, were they? Well, let me put it this way. 1 to 2 weeks away from being able to build a nuclear weapon is horrific. That's very bad. Iran is a terrorist state. It is. You can disagree. It doesn't matter. Anybody who studies international relations will tell you Iran, very bad leadership, very dangerous country. You don't want them to have nuclear weapons. The question becomes, and this is where I said last night, the question isn't whether it was just for Israel to attack. It was. And it was. America someday would also attack Iran to take out their nuclear weapons at some point if a negotiation didn't work. Trump has been negotiating with Iran. The negotiations, next negotiation was going to be Sunday. I think Iran canceled it as a result of this. The negotiations haven't really been going anywhere. Trump had given Iran 60 days to agree to negotiate, to basically reach a deal. That 60 days finished like 2 or 3 days ago. So Iran did not meet the deadline. And I forgot what I was saying with this. As far as Iran, the nuclear deal, Trump trying to negotiate. Here it is. Oh, yeah. So the question becomes, did Israel have to attack last night? No. Israel says Iran was getting close. We know Iran was getting close. I think there still was time to negotiate, but Iran was far too close for comfort, and they may still be, to building a nuclear weapon. B, they have to be stopped. We cannot allow Iran to build a nuclear weapon. They're too dangerous. And C, therefore, what do you do about it? Now, that gets difficult too, because, as I said, the Israeli attack, there's no moral argument. There's no ethical argument against it. What Israel did was absolutely just. Absolutely just. Whether it was wise is a different question. As I said, A, was it necessary to do yesterday? I don't think so. Was it wise in the sense of will it accomplish its goals without causing bigger problems? Not entirely clear. Iran's nuclear weapons program for decades now, thank you for the gifts there, Randy. For decades now, Iran's nuclear weapons program has been a large part of it. The most important part has been buried underground, like deep within mountains. Israel does not have the weapons to reach it, people believe. America might, but even America, the analysis, as I've said, going back 20 years ago, was that the U.S. didn't have the weapons as well to reach deep enough inside the mountains so that the U.S. would have to put tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of troops on the ground to dig up all of Iran's nuclear weapons labs and destroy them. Obviously, we don't want to do that, right? So the thought was, if we were to launch an attack on Iran to try to take it, to at least set them back, to at least make it harder for Iran to build a nuke, you'd have to attack, you'd have to have a massive attack, and then you'd have to keep attacking is the problem. You would set Iran back, maybe you'd set them back a year or two, and Iran would get closer. And then in a year, you'd have to attack them again. And then in another year, you'd have to attack them again. You'd have to keep attacking and attacking and attacking. And it becomes a never-ending war with Iran. Again, with the added problems of, well, A, it costs a lot of money. B, it costs a lot of lives because civilians are going to get hurt. C, it always runs the risk of turning into a larger regional war, right? I mean, Sonic just said spiraling out of control. It could, right? At some point, like we said, I mean, if Hamas starts doing something silly, if Hezbollah does, I mean, if the Houthis do, what if, for example, what if Iran decides at one point to attack American troops? You don't think Trump's going to respond? I guarantee you Trump's going to respond. If Iran attacks American military bases in the Middle East and kills an American soldier. And then all of a sudden America's in the war. And if America's in the war, is Russia going to be able to stay out? Right? It gets very, very difficult. So as I said, my problem is that Iran has to be stopped. Iran cannot be permitted to have a nuclear weapon. It is not clear that last night that military action was required last night. I don't think it was required yet. It is also not clear. Well, I don't want to say it's not clear what the military action achieves because it should set Iran back, but we don't really know that yet. Not entirely. I mean, we don't know whether Iran is still going to be able to cobble together. Could they cobble together a nuclear weapon? I don't know, right? Israel is still going to be striking them tonight for the next few nights. Thank you, Carrie. If Israel is able to set back Iran's program significantly, that isn't a bad thing for the world, but it does entail some risks. And I guess, as I said, the fact that Trump was busy negotiating with Iran, I would have liked to have at least seen how the negotiations proceeded first. Now, it looks like Iran might have been dragging its feet, maybe, right? But I would have rather had the negotiations fail and then say, okay, all bets are off, right? Israel, America, do what you need to do. Because if we can't negotiate with Iran, military action would be the next step to ensuring that Iran does not develop nuclear weapons. That's just a fact. So anyway, all right, let's get into this. Jason says, this potentially helps Ukraine since presumably Iran will be sending fewer drones to Russia to use if Iran helps them. Well, this is kind of funny Jason mentions that, because the top Iranian official in charge of the drone program for the Russians was killed by the Israelis last night. If you're Ukrainian, that's a pretty good thing. Yes. Now, Russia has already been given a lot of the technology to make drones, so by the Iranians. So it's not clear to what degree Russia might be more self-sufficient now, right, in terms of producing its drones. Having said that, it still is a good thing for Ukraine if a top Iranian official who is helping Russia is gone. That still is helpful. Another thing I was going to mention that was fascinating, one of the things Iran did, it snuck a lot of weapons, and I don't recall if they were missiles, or I'm going to look here if I've got it. If they were missiles, or yes, they were. Hold on a second. So I've got some notes on this. Mossad Commando. So Mossad is Iran's CIA. They're very, again, not Iran, Israel, excuse me. Whatever you think of Israel, it's not relevant in terms of judging Mossad. Mossad is one of the most effective intelligence services on the planet. Mossad infiltrates Iran. They go deep within Iranian territory. They plant precision-guided weapons and explosive drones near Iranian surface-to-air missiles. So the surface-to-air missiles are missiles on the ground that go to the air and shoot down planes, and they're meant to protect Iran from Israeli airplanes. They sneak in drones and other weapons, put them near the surface-to-air missiles, and they did this a while ago. Put them near the Iranian anti-aircraft weapons, and as soon as the Israelis are attacking, they turn them on and blow up the anti-aircraft weapons that the Iranians have in order to make sure that the Iranians can't stop the Israeli planes. One second here. Covert mobile weapons with advanced strike capabilities were concealed in ordinary vehicles near air defense sites and launched. They hid the weapons in vehicles, and the vehicles opened up automatically, and the weapons flew out and took out the Iranian systems. What does that sound like? That sounds like what Ukraine did last week to the Russians. The Ukrainians snuck in weapons, put them inside vehicles, basically, parked the vehicles near Russian airports, and then remotely from Israel, remotely from Ukraine, opened the containers. The drones went flying out and attacked the Russian airplanes. Brilliant move. It is interesting. I was talking to Callum about this, and whether like any connection between Israel and Ukraine. Callum thinks that honestly, he doubts there's any connection. Let me rephrase that, because I said, look, this is way too much of a coincidence. The same week, both of them used the same secret Trojan horse technique. And Callum said, I wouldn't be surprised if the Israelis found out about the Ukrainian plan, because Israel has great intelligence, right? He said, I wouldn't be surprised if the Israelis figured out, they intercepted something, whatever, about the Ukrainian plan. And they said, that's freaking brilliant. And they did the same thing for Iran. Really interesting. Spiderweb Trojan horse, exactly. So yeah. So that's where things are. Again, happy to talk more about this. But like I said, it's very bad that Iran is building nuclear, or is getting close to building nuclear weapons. It's incredibly dangerous. If Iran used nuclear weapons, you'd see way more people hurt than got hurt in the attacks last night. It would be very dangerous for the world. I am extremely happy. I'm actually very happy at what Israel did. My only concern is whether It was, my concern is whether it will achieve its goals. And that is all, you guys know this from politics overall with me, that I am a big fan of not whether it's activists, at home or whomever, or foreign policy. I'm a big fan of not, or I should say, I'm not a big fan of people. Thank you for the gift. Who's that? Thank you, Marsha. I'm not a big fan of people saying, oh, let's do this because it feels good. Like it feels good to go after Iran, so it's good, right? Or it feels good to do an activist thing at home. So, let's shut down freeways because it feels good. And I'm like, no, you shut down the freeway if somehow it advances your political cause, but don't shut it down if it's just turning people off. And the same thing with attacking Iran. It might feel good to attack Iran's nuclear program. That doesn't mean you do it. You do it if it's going to achieve your goal. Your goal is to set Iran further back from being able to build a nuclear weapon. Will this achieve that goal? A. B, will it achieve the goal without causing even more problems? And again, the more problems would be potentially a larger war in the Middle East, potentially dragging in America, potentially dragging in Russia, right? All of that it could be potentially really dangerous. So those are concerns that I would legitimately have about the war. But as I said, I do not see any moral or ethical issues with regards to what Israel did, because America would have done the same thing. Oh, you're babysitting? That's funny. I was trying to see if Callum could come on with us. He goes, I'm babysitting. All right, we'll see how it is, Callum. If you want to come, if you're around, Callum, let me know, because you should join us if you're free. Yeah. So that's where we are. Questions, comments. We've got a lot of people going nuts on TikTok, YouTube, not commenting much at all. Discord, as always, quiet, the silent but lovable Discordians. I don't know that the Russians would have given it to them. Documentary says if they really wanted a nuclear bomb, they could have gotten it from the Russians. No, look, Russia's kind of funny because Russia helped North Korea at the beginning to sort of to get on their path to getting a nuclear weapon. They helped them get a reactor they needed. But if you're the Russians, you're not unlike the Americans. It's not really clear you want anybody else getting nukes than you. The more countries that have nukes, frankly, the fewer countries you can push around. The more countries you have nukes, the more you've got to worry. It's a more dangerous world. And I have always said, I think the Russians are very rational. I think the Russians commit a lot of war crimes, but I think their leadership is very rational. And I think the Russian leadership overall would still not be thrilled at Iran getting a nuclear weapon because it's too risky. I mean, and they're religious zealots as well. It's not like they're always going to agree with Russia, right? I don't know. I don't. As much as I criticize the Russians, I don't think of the Russians as just giving the Ukrainians, giving the Iranians a nuke. But Iran does want nuclear weapons. I mean, they've been literally building for years to this point. But they also know Israel and America will not accept Iran getting nuclear weapons. And maybe some of the Europeans, who knows about France? I mean, or the UK even, right? I don't know. Actually, I didn't ask Callum that. Is sort of what the UK position would be if Iran literally, we had intelligence that they're building the weapons in a week. How the UK would feel about that. Thank you, Marsha. Meaning whether the UK would say we have to attack or whether the UK would say, well, we're screwed, right? What if Iran already has nukes? Code. Most people do not think. Okay, that sounded like a Donald Trump sentence. Most people think that Iran does not yet have nuclear weapons. There are some Israeli officials, or there's like a former Israeli official, top Israeli official, who thinks Iran does in fact have some nukes already. Most analysts think they do not yet. So. And I think from Israel's perspective, that's also, from Israel, it gets interesting for Israel as well, because Iran has threatened to annihilate Israel repeatedly. The problem for Iran is Israel has over 100 nuclear weapons. I don't remember now if Israel has like 200. I forget let me see. Let me check this. How many nukes does Israel have? Oops. It was 100 many decades ago. I was going to say 90 to 200 sounds about right, Mr. O'Connor. I think it's, let me see here. Let me see here. Okay, USDIA says 80 to 90 as of 2022. Stockholm International Peace Institute, 90. Federation of American Scientists, 80 to 90 deployed, possibly 200 total capacity. That's interesting. That gets into what Connor was saying. Bulletin of Atomic Scientists says 80. Range is quite far, 4,800 to 6,500 kilometers. Wow, that's huge. They've got submarine launch missiles, which is very important because you're able to basically survive an attack. So from an Iranian perspective, Israel has nukes. If Israel were to get nuked, they would nuke back. Yes. Thank you, Marcia. The problem with nukes is they're kind of a better deterrent than they are an offensive weapon. Meaning, if you use your nukes against somebody who has nukes, you'll get nuked back. That's not a good thing, right? So if Iran had a nuclear weapon and used it against Israel, Israel would level Iran. Israel has submarine-launched missiles. Submarine launch missiles would absolutely positively survive, and Israel would level Iran. Literally level it. So you sort of, but my point is, it's an interesting conundrum because you can say you're worried about Iran having a nuke, but at the same time, if Iran used its nuke, they'd be wiped from the map by us or the Israelis or anybody else. So would they use it? Having said that, look at the Russians. The Russians have nukes. The Russians have been the bane of our existence for 100 years. A good part of that time, 70 years, because they have nuclear weapons. Russia and Ukraine. Russia has gotten away with murder in Ukraine because they have nuclear weapons, right? Because Russia has acted erratically enough that they've made us worry whether they would use nuclear weapons. So a country having nuclear weapons can get away with murder. North Korea, right? I mean, North Korea, anyway, a lot of, you get it. It's still very dangerous for Iran to have them. Well, the question is, who comes to rescue Iran? Ebri says, what if others come to rescue Iran? The people who would come to rescue Iran, more likely, maybe Hezbollah in Lebanon. Maybe, thank you, not the Egyptians. I love that gift, though. Thank you, Marsha, for the Pharaoh mask. Hezbollah terrorist group in Lebanon. Hamas terrorist group in Gaza, maybe. The Houthis, maybe, right? The Houthis in Yemen, maybe. That gets interesting. The Russians, maybe. Russia gets a little complicated, right? Russia gets a lot more complicated because the Russians are already fighting in Ukraine and they're already in trouble there. I see somebody trying to compare this to Iraq. I never said the same thing about Iraq, but George Bush said the same thing about Iraq, but he was lying. And we know he was lying. The entire world knows what Iran's nuclear weapons program is, including the International Atomic Energy Agency, which is sort of an adjunct of the United Nations. Literally, the top UN officials have concluded that Iran is 2 weeks away from building a nuclear weapon. So this is not George Bush, right? George Bush was the one who concluded that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction, and he knew he was lying. So no, this is, I will also say that's an incredible logical fallacy. I got lied to once, so everybody in the world is always lying in the future. That's a silly, I would say that's kind of a childish argument. You know what I mean? Somebody lied to me once, so everybody lies to me. No, that's not the way the world works. Especially when it's the entire world, including the United Nations at this point. We know what Iran's program is. We know what Iran's got. Pakistan, I don't know. That's an interesting question. 7M says whether Pakistan would stand with Iran. Here's part of the problem. You really want to get attacked by Israel? Pakistan? If Pakistan were to try anything against Israel, Israel would level Pakistan. But if they could, I shouldn't say Israel would level them. Israel would have to reach Pakistan. I think it becomes a different question for Israel potentially trying to reach Pakistan. It's farther, right? Although it's not that much farther. That's an interesting question. What's the distance? Hang on a second. How much farther from Tel Aviv is Karachi than Tehran? That's an interesting question, actually. Just because it's farther, but I'm not convinced it's that much farther. Let's see here. Distance from Tel Aviv to Tehran, approximately 1,500 kilometers. Oh, interesting. Distance from Tel Aviv to Karachi, 3,200 kilometers. It's twice as far. Wow. 1,500 kilometers is 1,000 miles. Yeah, 1,000 miles or so. So Tehran to Tel Aviv, so Israel to Iran, 1,000 miles, Israel to Pakistan, 2,000 miles. Okay, that's pretty far. That's pretty far. Islamabad? Okay, sorry. Hey, same point proven. Got the capital wrong. Islamabad, fair enough. But you get the point. The distance is twice as far, so that's pretty far, actually. That's an interesting point. Harvey just said if Pakistan got involved, India might join in. That's an interesting one. Well, actually, but do you think they would, Harvey? I mean, Harvey is one of our international relations lawyers, experts. I don't know. That's an interesting question. I mean, we know Pakistan and India are historic enemies, but if Pakistan were to get involved with Israel and Iran, what is India's interest there? You know what I mean? I'm asking a legitimate question. I don't know whether India would see any point regarding its own national interest to get involved, or whether India would just say, I mean, Pepe just said India wouldn't care. I wonder whether India would just go, you know what, knock yourselves out. Because also to India's perspective, if I were India, I'd say, you know what, if Pakistan wants to pick a fight with the Israelis, you go, girl. And we're going to sit back and watch what happens, right? Because Israel. Now the question would be how effective. Well, that's a question too. Let me see. How effectively could Israel strike Pakistan if they needed to? That's what I'm kind of wondering about. Thank you, Magic Knight, for subscribing. We know, like I said, their nuclear missiles can go that far, but that's not what you'd want to do. So let me see here, because I just asked ChatGPT. Israel strike capabilities against distance targets. The F-35L Adir, stealth fighters, combat radius 1,000 kilometers, unrefueled, extendable with aerial refueling. F-15, 1,600 kilometer radius. Mind you, it's got to go 3,200 kilometers. Would require multiple in-air refuelings, a forward operating bases, which Israel lacks near Pakistan. Overflight of hostile nations or neutral nations, including Iran, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, possibly India would be needed. Very difficult. Ballistic missiles, yes. Israel's longest ballistic missile can go 4,800 kilometers at least. Pakistan is less than that. Submarine launch cruise missiles will also fall short. Submarine launch cruise missiles, 1,500 to 2,000 kilometers. Pakistan's 3,000 kilometers away. So yeah, it would not be easy for Israel to reach Pakistan. And having said that, I'm not sure how easy it would be for Pakistan to reach Israel, right? That's the other problem. Hold on. How easily can Pakistan reach Israel? I'll bet you it's even harder for Pakistan. Let's see, but I'll bet you it's even harder for Pakistan to reach Israel. Pakistan can reach Israel militarily, but only under very limited conditions. It would be difficult. They do have a missile that goes 2,700 kilometers, but that's not enough. 2,000 kilometers, not enough. Oh, it does say one was specifically designed to reach Israel. The Shaheen just reaches Israel. Another one's not far enough. Only the Shaheen can reach Israel, and just barely, and it's not battle tested. So similar problem. And their aircraft cannot go that far. Their aircraft can only go up to 2,000 kilometers, and that's it. And Israel's 3,000 away. I mean, just an interesting off discussion on whether Pakistan would try to get involved. Turkey's not going to get involved. Yeah, no. Not to help Iran. No. I mean, also it would be like the end of Turkey and NATO, I think, if they tried that out, you know? Anyway, I don't really see why Pakistan would help. China and India have had border clashes with Pakistan. Interesting. Yep. India would only take advantage in the Khyber Pass, Kashmir, but China would counter them. What else we got here? Whatever. No, whatever. What else? Iran might attack the other states. Neville's asking, will Iran attack Qatar and UAE? In other words, the other Arab Gulf states? Maybe. One of the things that you worry about with Iran is and that's what I'm saying, they're a terrorist state. They are. They part of their strategy, the concern is if they get attacked, they say we're taking everybody else down with us, right? Thank you, Alyssa, for the gift. Thank you, Kat. Keep the gifts coming, guys. Thank you, Cricket. The idea of taking everybody down with them, so that they say if we get attacked, we're attacking oil in the Gulf. We're going to shut down the Strait of Hormuz, which I was talking about, where 20% of the world's oil goes through. We're going to attack the oil fields in Saudi Arabia. We're going to attack the other Arab governments, right? So, I mean, you get a sort of a pox on both your houses or all of your houses kind of thing with Iran. So there is certainly a risk that Iran says, let's just start attacking that. Now, I think maybe a greater, I don't know whether, interesting question as to whether Iran would attack those countries or whether they would just shut down the Gulf and say, fine, the West doesn't get their oil, because it's a problem, but it's attacking a Saudi Arabian oil field is a bigger deal. For example, Iran attacks a Saudi Arabian oil field, and I think America gets involved in this war. Now, Iran shuts down the Straits of Hormuz, and you're still going to see America get involved, I think. I mean, if I were Donald Trump and Iran did that, I would say, okay, this is ending today, and if it doesn't, you're going to see the U.S. Navy tomorrow, and it's going to be the end of you, because there's going to be about 100 cruise missiles coming at you. And Donald Trump is an interesting question, though, on that, because Trump talks a big talk, but as we've seen, he's a bit of a taco. He kind of caves a lot. So I don't know where Trump would be on standing up to Iran, really, right? He talks a good talk with regards to Iran, but would he really stand up to Iran? I mean, Trump has cultivated a MAGA base that is basically pacifist. I mean, basically dangerously pacifist, I would say. So who knows? It would be, Solak, yes. Wouldn't it be great if we had another source of energy and didn't need oil? Yes, except people elected Donald Trump, and he's shutting down all federal aid for solar. So one of the biggest solar companies in America just declared bankruptcy because of Trump shutting everything down. So yes, it would be a good thing. Not going to happen. Iran has the right to defend themselves? Sure. Good luck with that. I mean, bad guys do have the right to defend themselves, but they're bad guys. So, I mean, that statement, and I was going to say in a quarter will buy you a cup of coffee. It won't. That statement in $5 will buy you a cup of coffee. Doesn't really matter. Yeah, Iran has the right to defend itself. Sure. But they're still going to get attacked, and they're going to deserve to get it, frankly, because they're on the path to developing nuclear weapons. They cannot be allowed to have nuclear weapons. So Iran is absolutely the worst guy in the region, not even questionable. The Houthis are pretty bad. Well, in terms of governments, I mean, Hezbollah, terrorist group. Hamas, terrorist group. Houthis, terrorist group. Iran, as governments go, clearly the worst in the region. Assad was bad. He's gone. They got rid of him, thank God, in Syria. Saddam Hussein was terrible. He's gone. But Iran right now, one of the worst governments in the world. Absolutely, positively, not even a question. That's what I'm saying. This is one of those things where you guys need to do your research. Anybody who thinks they're going to defend Iran, because it's it's like the people who tried to defend the Houthis. And they said, oh, the Houthis, they're such nice people. They're horrific. The Houthi government in Yemen are horrific. They're a terrorist group. And the Iranian government is the same. So yeah, doesn't matter. I mean, facts are difficult things. I mean, literally, unless you're, Russian or Iranian, you're not going to defend Iran. Doesn't really matter if Israel's a good guy or not, Dom. We're talking about Iran getting a nuclear weapon. Nothing matters. Nothing matters. Iran has to be stopped from getting a nuclear weapon, period. Oh, we knew the trolls weren't going to like this. Yeah. Thank you, Jessica, for the gift. Thank you, Little Dunn. Oh, a rainbow. We need a rainbow right now. Marsha, thank you. Anyway, does Iran have allies? Yeah. I mean, they've got the Russians. They've got, like we said, terrorist allies, Hezbollah in Lebanon, Hamas, terrorist group in Gaza. They've got, a couple other terrorist groups there as well. They've got the Houthis. Government-wise, that's an interesting question as to what would be the other, which governments, the Russians, of course, are allies with Iran. That's an interesting question, phrasing it as allies, right? Because Russia clearly, Syria, yeah, but now it's, oh, that's funny. That's funny. I checked ChatGPT. It's mentioning Bashar al-Assad. Yeah, Assad. He's not dead, but Assad is gone, overthrown. See, this is a ChatGPT mistake. I asked it, who are Iran's allies? And it goes Assad in Syria. Well, he is Iran's ally, but he's currently hiding in Moscow. So yes, but you're a little bit wrong on that. Formal close allies: Iraq, the Shia in Iraq, Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Houthis in Yemen, I just said, Russia, China, and North Korea. And friendly with Iran: Qatar, Venezuela, nasty; Belarus, nasty; Turkey, not nasty; Taliban-led Afghanistan, nasty. The ones that matter there, strategic partners: Russia, China, North Korea matter. Syria is no longer an ally. Thank you, Dennis. And of course, as we said, Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis are all very dangerous. So there. What else? Canada needs nukes? Maybe. I mean, some European countries, it wouldn't be bad for them to get nukes too, to be honest. I think. Is it bad for the U.S. that they may have helped? If you mean the U.S. helping, I don't know about bad. What makes things interesting is if, in fact, the U.S. helped Israel, whether it was refueling planes, whether it was helping shoot down incoming missiles, Iran has to make a decision as to whether they attack the U.S. as well. And by attacking the U.S., they would probably go after U.S. military bases in the Middle East. Iran has to decide whether it's worth doing that. Remember, I told you, when you make decisions like this, you don't do it because it feels good. You don't say, let's hit the Americans, they helped Israel, right? No, you've got to say, does it meet our goals to attack America in the Middle East? Will it help Iran or will it hurt Iran? Currently, the Americans are not shooting bombs at Iran. They're not. It's just Israel. Maybe the Americans helped refuel the planes, maybe. Maybe the Americans helped shoot down incoming missiles into Israel, maybe, with some systems on our ships, the Aegis and stuff. Does that mean you as Iran want to turn around and hit the Americans by going after American military bases? Because if you attack an American military base and you hurt an American soldier, especially if you kill an American soldier, you're going to now be looking at American cruise missiles coming into Tehran. Israel's bad enough. Do you really want to face the American military? Now, America doesn't want war. I think Trump would probably be afraid of war to some degree, but I also think Trump would be forced into a war if, in fact, Iran were to attack American military in the Middle East and hurt any of our soldiers. So from an Iranian perspective, right, you kind of have to think, Iran right now is going, we don't like that America seems to be supporting Israel. We don't like that America may have refueled Israeli planes. We don't like that America is shooting down our missiles going to Israel, but America isn't lobbing missiles at us. If we lob missiles at America, America is going to lob missiles at us, and America has much bigger missiles. America has cruise missiles and lots of other really, really bad things it could drop on Iran. And if you're Iran, you don't want that to happen. So I think Iran is going to hold off on going after the U.S. I think for that reason, because if they're thinking rationally, they know it's going to cause the U.S. to enter the war in a big way, and Iran can't. I mean, it's bad enough Israel, because Israel can really hurt Iran, Changing the regime in Iran, I don't know enough about it, Khalid. He has to, if the U.S. can change the regime. I don't know if anybody can change the regime. I will say this, one thing Israel could have done last night is Israel could have, I think I was talking to Callum about this, they could have gone after the centers of the Iranian dictatorship, going after the morality police, right? All the people that the Iranians use to basically keep their people in check. The men who go and arrest those women and kill them, the women who won't wear headdresses and things, right? You blow up a lot of their headquarters and their offices around the country, and things get interesting. Currently, it does not look like Israel has done any of that. Tonight, will they? Iran hit Israeli cities. Israel said, don't you dare, and Iran did. So we'll see what Israel hits tonight. Now, the attacks typically are around 4 a.m. I forget again what time. Is it 1 a.m. there? Or 1:30, 1 o'clock? What time is it? Alexa, what time is it in Iran? Alexa, what time is it in Iran?
In Iran, it's 2:26 a.m. Did that answer your question?
keep saying 226. Is Iran on a different clock? 226. They're on a different clock, aren't they? Okay, because last night it said the same thing. It's 6:56 here. It gave the half hour being a different time in Iran. Yeah, very interesting. That's funny. No, because last night it said the same thing, and I went, okay, that's interesting. 2:30 is getting close to the time that you would attack. 3 a.m. to 4 a.m. is the sweet spot. Last night it was 3:30, I believe. Yeah, 7.5 hours. It's very weird. Yeah. Now, Callum, there's a good question. Somebody said, why, Callum? Why is 3 to 4 a.m. the sweet spot? Clearly, and I know this already, the darkness is helpful. But why 3 to 4 a.m.? Darkness happens at 9 o'clock at night, 10 o'clock at night, right? But 3 or 4 a.m. is often when you attack. Now, my suspicion would be, and we're waiting for Callum to tweet me because Callum was British military. My suspicion is your enemy is very tired at 3 a.m, right? So if you're trying to go after him, you might do more damage at 3 a.m. And psychologically, you're freaking everybody out. If at 3 a.m. they're getting woken up, right? If you do it at 9 and 10 o'clock at night, then they're able to go to bed at 1 o'clock and get a good night's sleep. Do it at 3 a.m., they're not getting a good night's sleep. And what Jens says, people's brains work the worst at that time. But that's a good question. Why? Anybody else military? I mean, I saw Edsel here earlier. Anybody else military know sort of the answer to that, of why attacks tend to be 3 to 4 in the morning? Now, one thing they also do, except in this case they didn't, often you would want to attack during a new moon, I think it's called, when the moon is at its smallest, because there's less light. You won't see soldiers on the ground. You might not see planes in the air. So sometimes, like with Iraq, I think the first Iraq war was a new moon, as I recall. Thank you, JBN. So there's no shadows, exactly. But Ash, do you know why the 3 to 4 a.m. thing? Callum is off taking care of children. I'm going to ask a quick question to ChatGPT. Why is it conventional wisdom that military strikes, wars, are often attempted at 3 or 4 in the morning? Callum just says because they're most tired. Okay, that's what I was assuming. Well, the thing is, you're most tired as well, though, to some degree, right? I mean, so there's a little bit of a flip there. I mean, your pilots are just as tired as you, right? Or your pilots are just as tired as the enemy if it's 3 in the morning, right? Here, ChatGPT says most troops and commanders are asleep between 2 and 5 a.m. Reaction times are slower. Chain of command is delayed. Units are groggy. Air defense and radar operators are often at minimum alertness. Nighttime increases the chances of achieving tactical surprise. Yes, but now there's no longer a surprise. Yes, but Israel already attacked Iran last night. They're going to attack again tonight. Is there any advantage in attacking at 3 a.m. versus 11 a.m.? Oh, sorry. Not 11 a.m. Still sleep deprived and overstretched. At 3 a.m., human alertness is biologically at its lowest. Well, your mommy just said that, and somebody else said it on YouTube as well. Right. At 3 a.m., human alertness is biologically at its lowest. Air defense operators, radar crews, and senior decision makers are more likely to be off cycle. Okay, 1 second here. We know stealth works better under darkness, but if Israeli pilots are attacking at 3 a.m., then doesn't that work against them because they're tired too? I mean, it's an interesting point, right? Yes, it's the time the Iranians are most tired, but the Israelis too. Let me see here. Oh, okay. Now that's interesting. Callum says, it's coming, so you sleep appropriately, meaning the Israeli pilots prepare in advance. You know what's funny, Callum? ChatGPT just said, because Callum, who's former military, just said, no, because it's coming, you sleep appropriately. ChatGPT just said, Israel plans these operations well in advance. Pilots are well rested before takeoff. Its first response was the same thing Callum just said. They're on rotating shifts, standard for air forces running continuous operations, backed by precision planning. Contrast that with Iran, who must stay on. Now, that's an interesting point. Thank you for the gift there, Marcia and Honey Badger. The Iranians have to stay on alert air all night. The Israelis just have to be ready for when their attack is going to happen, right? Now, Israel also has to be on alert because Iran could be sending missiles. Iran could be sending planes, although I think Iranian planes would not do very well against Israel. But that's a fair point, that to some degree, maybe for the Israelis, they only have to be on alert at 3 a.m. when they're attacking. The Iranians have to be alert the entire evening. Let me see. Offensive missions are less reactive than defensive ones. Pilots know exactly when they'll fly, what targets, and how long it will take. Defenders, by contrast, must stay alert for hours or days with little warning. That means Israeli pilots go into battle refreshed and ready. Iranian gunners may be fatigued. Thank you, Annie, for the gift. Support crews are also rested and prepped. Israel has trained for exactly this thing. Night combat is a core strength of the Israeli Air Force. Oh, that's interesting. Nighttime mock raids, joint U.S.-Israeli exercises focused on 24-hour conflict cycles, decades of experience striking targets in the region. Okay. Anyway, that's very interesting. That's interesting. But that's exactly it. You take a nap first, Amanda. Yep. Interesting. I do not see this, Cherise, as the beginning of a world war. Not yet. Not every war has to spin out of control. I would actually go one step further. We don't, thank you, Sana, for the gift. Thank you, Jetta and Marcia, for the very nice fish and chips. We don't yet know if this is even going to turn into a war. It's a war right now, but it's a war that might be like the war India and Pakistan had, where they kind of hit each other and then they stopped. Israel might decide in a couple days that they've hit enough. The Iranians might decide sending a couple hundred missiles at Israel for a few days in a row is enough, and they may both just stop. Who knows, right? So even this may not turn into a protracted war between Iran and Israel. It may not go on for months. It may not. So that's the first step. The second thing is, even if it does, it doesn't mean that we get dragged in and the Russians get dragged in and the Chinese get dragged in, right? Maybe. But the Russians can't really afford, the Russians might get dragged in, but they can't really afford it because they're dealing with Ukraine. Thank you for the gifts there. Keep the gifts coming, guys, by the way. Since we've been talking serious stuff, I haven't been asking for gifts, but I do this for a living, and your gifts pay the bills, so please keep them coming. And by the way, TikTokers and YouTubers, do follow me. I always forget to ask. I'm always talking substance, and I forget my personal gain here. Make sure you follow me on TikTok. Make sure you follow me on YouTube. And anybody who's a subscriber, I will be doing a show tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. Eastern that I do for the subscribers on Saturday mornings. So do join us there. Cyprus, I think Cyprus is totally safe. Yeah, who's going to go after Cyprus? There's no need to. You know what I mean? The U.S. is involved, Alex, but as I said earlier, the U.S. is involved the way the Russians get involved. The Russians are experts at doing just enough to annoy you, but not enough to provoke a military response, right? The way they go after the Europeans all the time. America, we hear, may have refueled Israeli planes. America, we hear, may, or we think it has, helped shoot down incoming Iranian missiles. Well, okay, yeah, we shot down missiles. Okay, that Iran doesn't like that, but is that really a reason to attack a U.S. military base and try to kill an American soldier because America shot down one of your missiles? That's disproportionate. That would make America blow you up if you did that, right? So I'm not convinced about that. I'm trying to think what else I was saying with that. With the and the same thing with refueling the planes. Refueling the planes, if true, would help the Israelis hit Iran. But is America refueling planes the same thing as America launching cruise missiles at Iran? No. If America launched cruise missiles at Iran, Iran would probably respond and hit American military bases. But if America is simply helping Israel on the side and not actually launching weapons, Iran doesn't want America involved in the war. Iran doesn't want America launching weapons against Iran. And Iran knows if they hit American military bases, Donald Trump will respond with missiles going against Iran. I think he will. I think he would have to. So I think America's involvement right now is just enough that we're helping Israel, but it's not helping Israel enough that the Iranians would feel compelled to, that the Iranians would feel that it was worth hitting us. because they know we would then literally hit Iran back with our weapons, which we're not doing yet. So that's my take on it. Well, sure, Blue Sky. Our lack of investment in renewable energy and high-speed rail is weak for us. Sure. I mean, renewable energy would make us less dependent on the Middle East. Having said that, a lot of terrorism coming out of the Middle East. I think if there wasn't oil, we'd still have problems with the Middle East. You know what I mean? So I'm not convinced that would save us. But it'd be nice not to be dependent on oil from the Middle East. Yes, that's very true. The UK safe. I mean, you're as safe as any of us at this point. Iran could resort to start doing terrorism in Europe or even America. They could. But if anybody finds out it's Iran, then they're gonna be in trouble. So anyway, what else? We got a couple more minutes and then we're going to, how do I see it ending? I don't know. I see this ending with Israel after several days causing so much damage to Iran's nuclear program that Israel says, okay, we won. And that's the end of it. That's how I see it ending, probably. The question becomes, can Israel do enough damage? One of the things I read today that was interesting was because Israel has blown up so many of these nuclear plants and weapons facilities, it's going to be impossible for the United Nations to even inspect them. How do you inspect what the Iranians are doing when everything's like blown up left and right? It's hard to know where they are and what they're doing. So it could make it a lot harder to verify that the Iranians aren't doing anything. I would not be panicking. You're fine in the UK. You're totally fine. You're totally fine. Again, Iran at this point, the UK isn't helping Israel. Not only not helping, the UK was not a part of this attack. If Iran were to attack the UK, you would respond with missiles and planes. And Iran doesn't need that right now. Iran is dealing with Israel that already overpowers it. They don't need the UK and the Americans attacking them as well. It is possible that Iran would start to go after Europe and stuff, but I think it would be very stupid because then they would go after everybody else. You feel safer in Israel than you do in the UK? Oh, see, I don't think so. I mean, I think there's greater chances of terrorism maybe in the UK than Israel because you guys have such good security. But generally speaking, I don't see Iran attacking the UK or America at this point. Because as I've already said, if they attack us, then we would get into the war. They can't afford to have us in the war because we've got very good weapons. Greece doesn't matter. They're not going after you in Greece. If anything, Greece, by the way, I'll bet you, I don't know, but I'll bet you Greece has okay relations with Iran anyway, probably, would be my guess. Jordan gets interesting, right? Whether Iran tries to go after other Arab countries, that gets interesting, I think it's a possibility Iran goes after the UK or Europe or America, but I think it would be really dumb because if they do, then we enter the war and Iran's in real trouble then. Thank you, Blue Sky. So yeah, Nebraska, exactly. Nebraska, on the other hand, you're in trouble. The famed International Nebraska Brigade. Yes, exactly. But yeah, no, Iran, I mean, that's the interesting thing is that Iran right now, and here's the other thing. Another reason Israel attacked, because Iran is at its weakest it's been in decades. It lost Syria. Syria was its huge ally. And then Assad got overthrown. Syria is no longer Iran's ally. If anything, the Syrians don't really like Iranians because they were siding with the guy they overthrew. Hezbollah in Lebanon, severely damaged. Now, they still have 100,000 rockets, but they've been severely damaged by the Israelis. Remember all the pager bombs and all that kind of stuff? So Iran is weaker than it's ever been, which is good. And their economy is in bad shape too. So, there were reasons in Israel's favor for why they did this now, but for Iran, it gets really tricky, as far as how they respond to all of this. Israel is much smaller than Iran is very big. Iran is, I did not know this exact size. Iran is 2 times the size of Texas. No, for an American, they know what that means because Texas is huge. Iran is very big. If you look at a map of the Middle East, they're huge. So thank you. That's Mr. Turtle for the hat. Scotland, I think you're fine. What else? I just don't want to answer the questions we've already asked. We've already answered. Oh, Israel. We already know Israel has nuclear weapons. Israel's got 100+ nuclear weapons. Everybody knows that they've had them for 50 years. The issue with, why is America afraid to attack Iran? A couple of reasons. One, most experts think that a military attack is insufficient because Iran has so much of its nuclear weapons production or the capacity they're working on to build weapons underground, inside mountains, so deep that you can't reach them with bombs. And even American bombs would have a very difficult time. The thought is you would need a huge number of troops, tens of thousands, if not 100,000 troops on the ground to take out Iran's nuclear weapons program. No one wants to do that, right? No one wants 100,000 American troops going to Iran. So it gets very difficult, and Israel doesn't have it. Israel's 7 million. How big are you, Israel, right? No one has that. No one wants to do that. So that's why that's one big reason the U.S. doesn't want to attack Iran, because a lot of the experts said it's not enough. The best solution is a negotiated solution that gets Iran to back off its nuclear weapons program. But now there's other reasons too. The U.S. attacks Iran. Iran launches terrorism against Europe, which they probably would do if the U.S. went to war against Iran. They would strike out at the Europeans. They would. They strike out at us too, but they'd go after you guys. There's a lot of concerns. U.S. bases in the Middle East would be attacked. Maybe we would go to war with Hezbollah against Israel. Like it could become a huge global war if we went and bombed. Having said that, if Iran chooses to build a nuclear weapon, the U.S. will attack, I believe. Absolutely. So that threat will happen anyway, but it's a last resort, the U.S. attacking Iran to stop a nuclear weapon, because there's so much danger of what could happen with them attacking us, attacking the Europeans, terrorism, attacking our bases, a regional war, Saudi Arabia, closing down the oil fields, right? I mean, there's so many possibilities of very bad thing, which would damage the world economy and damage us. So there's a lot of things that could happen wrong if we attacked Iran. But if Iran is about to build a nuke, yes. Could trigger world war? Not yet. No, I don't think so. No, I'm not convinced it's a world war anyway, because Russia is in trouble with Ukraine. Part of it depends on Russia too. If Russia starts getting tough guy, I mean, if Russia were to start, for example, if Russia were to say, Iran's our ally, Israel, you attack them again and we're getting involved, then Donald Trump better say, got news for you, Boris. You do that, then we're involved too. So, Russia could say something like that I think would be very stupid. But anyway, so yeah, the main, I'm going to close up because we're at 7:15, preserving my voice. And if Israel attacks again in an hour or two, I'm going to have to come back on anyway and do another show. Bottom line is, Iran is not the good guy here. Iran is developing a nuclear weapon. If Iran has a nuclear weapon, it is a disaster for the world. It is akin to North Korea having nukes, which they do have, and it's incredibly dangerous. Iran is a state sponsor of terrorism. It is one of the worst governments on the planet. It is a dictatorship. You do not want them having nuclear weapons. The world will have to stop Iran from getting nuclear weapons some way or another. Israel did it early. I fault Israel for doing it too early, I think. I don't think it was necessary to do it now, but I think it will be necessary someday to go at Iran and get rid of their nukes if we cannot negotiate away a deal. So that's why I say, put aside your bias about Israel. Whether you like Israel or not, however you feel about Gaza is irrelevant when analyzing whether or not it is a problem for the world if Iran has nuclear weapons. Iran either is or isn't a problem with nukes. It doesn't matter whether Israel invaded Gaza or not, right? It's all about Iran and whether they have nukes. And in my view, there is no way Iran can be permitted to have nuclear weapons. So there you go. The question, as I said, it's not clear that we needed military action yet. That's the question. Anyway, And that's another problem. Clay raises a good point. Well, Clay raises a decent point. I think we should worry more about the Trump administration causing problems than Iran. I wouldn't say more. I would say equally. I worry equally about what Trump is doing and what Iran is doing, because in Iran's case, we're literally talking about nuclear weapons. We're not talking, oh, they might cause regional problems, right? We're talking nuclear weapons. That's a threat to the world. So that does matter. But Donald Trump is also a significant threat in many ways. Yes. All right. All right, guys, I'm going to sign off because it's 7:15. I'm trying to protect my voice here. And depending what happens in the next couple hours, I may be coming on again in 2 hours if Israel's attacks are so significant. Just a quick reminder, follow me on TikTok, follow me on YouTube, subscribe if you want to help out, support my work. And I do a show every Monday to Friday, 6 o'clock Eastern. We focus on, international politics, U.S. politics. I'm in Washington, D.C., but also on, thank you, Super Hornet. Thank you, Alex, Alexandria, but also on the war in Ukraine. Tonight, we're not doing war in Ukraine because this is too big of a topic, obviously, but we focus a lot on that as well. So if you like my work, please follow me. I think that's it. I was going to say something else. I don't recall. I don't recall. Whatever it is. Anyway, thank you guys. Thank you. Jens just gave a gift certificate. Oh, Arctic Legacy. That's funny. Arctic, I'm not sure you needed a gift certificate. I mean, a gift membership, but congratulations. That's funny. That's very funny. I mean, it's funny how YouTube does that stuff sometimes. That's very cute. Anyway, the Canuck got it. Damn Canadians taking everything. That's too funny. All right, guys. Good night, England. All right. Have a good night, guys. Yeah, I may be back in a few. I'm trying to protect my voice, but we'll see. All right. Have a good night, guys. See you later. Yep. I'll shoot a message if I go live to the mods. Thanks. I appreciate that, mods. Because if I go live later, I probably would do it for everybody just to kind of update people on what's going on. This is important stuff, So, all right. Discord. I'm going to hang up on you. Oh, wait. Okay. Yeah. Did you see that, Arctic? All right. Discord, have a good night. Hang on. Zoom. YouTube, hang on a second. There we go. An AI voice. Exactly. I could use my Stephen Hawking voice. Welcome to the show tonight. All right, guys. YouTube, I'm going to sign off. As I said, I might be back later. We'll see. I am trying to be careful here. All right. Have a good night, guys, on YouTube. TikTok as well. What side am I on?